Hello there and welcome to this video on cross-currency swaps. We will discuss the basics of IRS and CCS to help you differentiate between IRS and CCS. We'll take a simple example to explain the mechanics and benefits of CCS. So let's get going. Before we discuss cross-currency swaps or CCS, let's look at the plain vanilla interest rate swap IRS. In a plain vanilla IRS, two parties agree on a notional principal amount. One party pays to the other a fixed interest rate, say 10%, and receives a floating interest rate from the other party. The fixed interest rate is called the swap rate. The agreed amount is the notional amount because the amount is not exchanged initially or repaid at maturity. This amount is never exchanged. It is just used for calculation of cash flows. By convention, the party that pays the fixed rate in the fixed for floating swap is called a payer. A cross-currency swap is a more complicated arrangement than a plain IRS. Essentially, it is similar, but two currencies are involved instead of one. Since two currencies are involved in a CCS, the principal amounts are exchanged at the beginning and at the end of the CCS contract term. A CCS is an agreement between two or more parties to exchange interest obligations, that is, payments of interest on borrowings or interest receipts, interest income received from a loan, between two different currencies. The reference interest rates can be fixed on both sides, floating on both sides, or one fixed and one floating. The most common form is to have a fixed rate in one currency and a floating rate applicable to the other currency. Let's take an example. This is a fixed for fixed cross-currency swap. Party A, based in the USA, takes a USD 1 million loan that is a 3-year term from a US bank on which it pays 8% fixed interest rate per year. That is, A always pays USD 80,000 per year to the lender bank in USA. It is legally obliged to make such interest payments. Party B, which is based in Singapore, takes a Singapore dollar 1.2 million loan for 3 years from a Singapore bank on which it pays 6% fixed rate per year. That is, B always pays Singapore dollar 72,000 per year to the lender bank in Singapore. It is legally obliged to do so. At the inception of the CCS, Party A takes the USD 1 million loan, but gives the USD 1 million amount to Party B in USA. That is, the amount of USD 1 billion is taken from the bank by Party A, but handed over to Party B in USA only, not in Singapore. Party B takes the SGD 1.2 million loan in Singapore, but hands it over to Party A in Singapore, that is domestically. That is, the principal amounts of the loans are exchanged. The money does not cross borders. The funds do not cross border. The cash flows during the 3 years of the cross-currency swap will be as follows. Regarding the interest, Party B pays interest on the USD loan to Party A. That is 8% of the USD 1 million, which is 80,000 per year, will be paid by Party B, which actually gets the US dollar funding. And Party A pays interest on the Singapore dollar loan to Party B at 6% of Singapore dollar 1.2 million, that is 72,000 Singapore dollars per year. Party A receives the Singapore dollar 1.2 million from Party B, which has actually taken the loan from the bank. At the termination of CCS, Party B pays back USD 1 million to Party A, and Party A pays back Singapore dollar 1.2 million to Party B. Note that the spot USD SGD exchange rate on the date of termination of the CCS does not matter. Basically, the cash flows exchanged at inception will be reversed, helping the parties to pay back the principal of their respective loans to their respective banks. The cash flows are as follows. At inception, we can see is the principal exchanged. Party A receives Singapore dollar 1.2 million from Party B and pays USD 1 million to Party B. Year 1, the interest exchange is 82,000 US dollars. It will be received by Party A from Party B, and Singapore dollar 72,000 will be paid by Party A to Party B. This will continue for 3 years, and at the end, the initial principal exchange will be reversed. Party A will receive USD 1 million from Party B and pay Singapore dollar 1.2 million to Party B. In effect, the CCS has helped Party B take on the USD loan in the USA despite being a Singaporean company. And Party A takes on the Singapore dollar loan in Singapore despite being a US company. Party B becomes responsible for the USD loan, principal plus interest payments, and Party A becomes responsible for the Singapore dollar loan, principal plus interest payments. Now, why is the CCS required? In our example, since the actual loan from the bank was taken by the US company in US and the Singapore company in Singapore, the banks likely charge them a lower interest rate. Hence, both parties saved money by the CCS. This saving is primarily because of the comparative advantage that the US company enjoys in the US, that is, it gets cheaper rate loan than a foreign company, and the comparative advantage that the Singapore company enjoys in Singapore, it gets cheaper rate loan than a foreign company. For example, imagine that the US company wants to open an office in Singapore and needs Singapore dollar 1.2 million for the purpose, and the Singapore company needs US dollar 1 million to open an office in the USA. If the US company approaches a Singapore bank directly, it may be charged 7% interest instead of 6%. And if the Singapore company approaches a US bank directly in US, it may be charged 9% interest rate instead of 8%. This is the comparative advantage principle at work in this context. Together, the two parties save 1% each, a total of 2%. This is the combined benefit. This benefit is also referred to as the quality spread differential, or QSD, which is the comparative advantage of A in USD minus the comparative disadvantage of A in Singapore dollars. That is 9% minus 8% minus 6% minus 7%, which is equal to 2%. This is the combined benefit which the two parties get. We come to the end of the video on cross-currency swaps. Thanks for watching and happy learning.